Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Only Stupid Answers. This is the show where we answer your questions about movies, TV shows, comic books, apocalypses, and so much more. I'm your host, DJ Wooldridge. With me, as always, is Roxy Stryer. Hey, Roxy.
Sup, DJ?
How are you doing today?
On your toes.
Yeah.
Keeping you
got to switch it up.
What's up, DJ? I'm doing so well. How
Yeah.
are you doing today, man?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Snapping necks and cashing checks, as the kids say. As all those Zoomers are known to say.
I knew that's what you were doing, man.
Oh, my God.
All the checks.
Zoomers. You know, I had a conversation with, we were doing Mutant Academy this week, and I had a conversation with Sal because there's a prominent, or at least back in the 90s, there was a prominent X-Men book called Generation X. It was like the younger book, and I liked that better than, say, like New Mutants, because like there's X in the name. And I asked him, I was like, is that, can we not, like if the MCU were to do a young X-Men TV show, would they not call it Generation X because it's so specific? And what we kind of landed on is what's unique about Generation X is that like Generation Y is millennials. Generation Z is now becoming Zoomers. You know what I mean? And you got boomers and you got the lost generation. Generation X is just Generation X.
I don't know much about the generation names. I do know this. I was talking about Gen Z to my grandparents, and my Grammy was like, "What am I?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? You don't know your own generation?"
Dude.
And she was like, that was not really a thing when we were growing up. And then I looked it up, and I had always thought they were the greatest generation.
Yeah.
Because that's what people call the World War II fighters.
Yeah.
But the greatest generation is the people that were born before 1924. After that, apparently, is called the silent generation.
Yeah.
Which she had never heard of. And I was like, huh.
Our pocket is, I feel like, the most obsessed with the generations of any of them. And I think it has I think, and this is entirely anecdotal, I have no data to back this up, but it's just my feelings. And I feel like it's social media. For some reason, social media has really gotten us into the headspace of everything needs to be categorized. Like we're starting to think more like computers and machines. Like everything needs a category and a space. Maybe it's because I'm, what am I, a borderline millennial, Gen X or whatever. Growing up, like labels were bad. Nobody wanted, don't label me. I'm whatever I want to be. Larger point is, I think it's interesting that like we've become very into categorization as a thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of no gray area. Like I know that you just were saying that you're on the border, but you're not. You are full blown a millennial.
Yeah.
And I am a full blown a millennial. And a millennial is anybody born after 96 into, I forget the top part of it, but you and I are still years out from it because it's people in their like mid 40s. Yeah. So after that being Gen Z it's so bizarre because if you are born in 97 versus 96, you're a completely different generation.
Yeah.
Like, what?
No,
you know, like
that's not how things work.
Born in December versus January, and it's like then you have nothing. You don't dress the same. You don't part your hair the same. You don't have the same musical interests. Like that doesn't make any sense.
And I also feel like it's a low-key way to continue to pit people against each other. Like, whoa, us millennials are having such a different experience than the Gen Z. It's like, I mean, kind of are we? Like you said, like is the guy somebody born in 96 having that different of experience than somebody in 97? You know,
yeah, I also feel like we happen to, and maybe every generation has felt like this, but I feel like the millennials happen to take a lot of heat from the older generations and the younger generation.
Yeah.
And it's like, did everybody take this much heat? Like, could it all really be our fault?
Yeah. I think it's definitely because I was just listening to a show that was talking about a movie called PCU that was made in 1994, I think, that was about PC culture. And it's like, it was basically one of those, these kids today. And it's like, God, every generation, we're like, these kids. And the one that blows my mind is like, they're so soft. And it's like, isn't that good, man? Isn't like a good thing that we're not everybody in our generation's required to fight a war? Shouldn't we want things to be softer for people? Wouldn't that be a positive thing to work towards?
That criticism I kind of understand sometimes, because if you are part of the older generation and you watch some of the things younger generations complain about, and you did sacrifice like so much because you had to, It might be annoying.
Yeah. It
might be annoying to hear people complain about certain things when you're like, I mean, I was legit overseas, like, small one.
But I also think like you talk about your grandparents. It's like, I bet you the generation before them was like, these kids, they didn't have to work in a coal mine. They didn't have to go down chimneys and like find rats inside the house. They didn't. It's like, yeah, good, right? Good. Like, we don't.
Totally. It's so funny, DJ, because I was just talking to Grammy about this, how her parents, when they met my papo, they didn't like him. And I'm like, but he had just come back from fighting a war. Like, did that hold any kind of, like, my grandfather's like a legitimate war hero.
Yeah.
But when he came back, he couldn't find a good job. So he was going door to door trying to sell things. And they thought that was like, so like, get a better job. You have to be able to take care of somebody. And I was like, okay, so this really is.
Yeah, you fought one war. We had to fight 3 in my time. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, good. Like,
back to back.
Yeah. It's like, I didn't have to fight a war. That's good. My kids hopefully won't have to fight. That would be, I think, a positive thing. Anyway, I think broader point, just let people be people, man. We're all just people. We're all just trying to make our way. And let them be. Let them be. And
Are you listening to a Beatles song right now? Is that where this is going?
No, I'm not brushed up enough on the Beatles stuff that I can just pull one out of the.
Let it be. Let it be.
Just let people be. Just let them live their lives. I guess so. I guess that's what I'm getting at. And listen, if you want to be categorized, but also maybe people don't want to feel categorized. Just let it. But future generations, here's my segue, might have to deal. Dark. I have to deal with an apocalypse if we go based off of all the movies and shows we're putting out. And in honor of Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, we're going to be talking about apocalypses today. But before we do that, a little business up top. Gosh, dang it. As always, if you want more of this, if you want our Patreon exclusive shows like what we're into or Spider-Versity, you can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupid answers. You can watch episodes like this live as well. Every week we ask a question on Spotify if that's where you listen. So check out the question on this episode. And if you're listening on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, please. And thank you. It's super helpful to us. And we like to start off many a week with a little bit of news. We got a couple trailers dropped this week, specifically Beetlejuice, the sequel to Beetlejuice. Oh no, I said it 3 times. And Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F, which I think is the 4th Beverly Hills Cop movie. And I had Roxy watch both of these trailers. Roxy, did you get any tingles, any feels from either of these?
Yeah, I definitely did. The Beverly Hills Cops one made me think that I don't know if I saw the original movie. I was like, I always thought I did, but I don't know that I have. And he is just like one of the funniest comedians of all time. Oh, I should have added to my list of what I'm into, the Mark Twain special honoring Kevin Hart, because he had like some of the greatest comedians there. But they made a joke about Eddie Murphy showing up, and Kevin Hart thought that he was going to come out, and Eddie Murphy didn't come out. Okay. And it was very funny. But anyway, this trailer didn't move the needle that much for me because I didn't feel like the nostalgia effect. Yeah. But Beetlejuice was one of my favorites growing up. I love Beetlejuice. And I like anything that's feels in tone with Beetlejuice. This is going to be such a weird one, but like I loved the Wednesday show, which obviously is not Beetlejuice, but
it's
some crossover actors, some like similar vibe stuff. I really like gothy punk, obscure stuff. I like anything Keaton's into, anything Catherine O'Hara's in. Like this cast totally works for me. Didn't even know how deep the cast went. Justin Theroux, Willem Dafoe, like very, very cool choices. And so watching this, I was like, whoa, I'm so excited for this. Yeah. I'm so excited for this. I loved in the trailer that kind of teenage vibe of, no, I'm serious. Do not say that name again. And her, like, I could just see myself and I'm in there, Beetlejuice, you know, like having no idea what's about to come of this. And Winona, like, knowing exactly what this was going to mean. It did feel like it might end up being a little bit just like a repeat of the first. Yeah. It didn't seem like it was going to be that different, but I'm kind of down with it. The trailer definitely excited me.
Does it make you, seeing Winona Ryder dressed in the same outfit that she wore when she was a child in the original one. Does that make you sad at all? A little bit?
No, I know you mentioned that before. It
Yeah.
must have been when like a teaser came out or whatever. No, it really didn't. I know it makes you sad though, DJ.
It makes me a little. The way we keep trotting out, like in the new Ghostbusters movie, when you see Bill Murray in the Ghostbusters outfit, you're like, this poor fucking man. Like let it go. Like
Let me
even
ask
like
you a question.
yeah,
Okay,
Harrison
let me ask you
Ford
a
and the
question.
most recent Indiana Jones. It's like just let it be, let
Let me
these
ask you a
people
question,
change.
DJ. How many of our friends who are in their 40s or older do you feel like have never taken off the graphic tee?
I mean, I guess some of them, but I like to think I dress differently than when I was a child.
Do you?
Yeah, actually, yeah, yes.
But like, okay, right now you're in a solid shirt. You do
Yeah.
wear some graphic tees, but most of the time I see you, you are in a t-shirt and jeans.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think about our friends who are always in a graphic tee, baseball cap, and like they've been wearing that since they were 13 years old.
And you think when they're like, yeah, all right, yeah, maybe that's a broader, here's where my old man comes out. Like, we need to grow up, man. We need to find a way to culturally grow up. Like, I feel like, so for me, this is my apocalypse, to keep it in theme. No, it's just one of those things. Like, I brought this up on multiple shows. Forgive me if I brought it up with you, Roxy, before, but it's one of those things. Like, imagine if in the 80s, right, instead of making, George Lucas making Star Wars or Spielberg making E.T., all we got were like remakes. Like George Lucas got to do his Flash Gordon remake, and Spielberg was just busy remaking The Searchers. If studios were like, no new things ever, it has to be everything that we made in the 50s, we're making again in the 80s. Then all the things we're remaking now from the 80s wouldn't exist. And it's just like, I don't.
Absolutely. But we are also making so many more things now. Like there are so many more movies coming out every month than used to be. So some of those are original. And I'm with you. I think, DJ, it's bothersome to you and I specifically because we're filmmakers.
Yeah.
And when people say there are no new original things, and it's like, I have 15.
Mm-hmm.
I have 15 of them
Yeah.
on my computer right now. Give me the money.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be making them original.
We're making a third Tron movie, even though none of the Tron movies have made money. Both Tron movies were not bombs, but they didn't do well. And so we're making a third Tron?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. But I do think we also, we can't deny that every year we do still get incredible original things. Like, I'm going to just throw the two that came to mind at first for some reason, which would be Crazy Rich Asians and Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah.
Like, those are not things where you're like, oh, I see that every day.
Yeah.
And those were huge blockbuster movies ended up being. So it's like we do all the time still get new stuff. And I do think like there are movies that are constantly remade. We know A Star is Born.
Yeah.
Every 20 years we remake that movie. We've just decided as a society that one needs to be remade 4 times so far, so I'm okay with something like this, especially because it doesn't feel like sometimes when they try to remake something, it feels like there's no interest for it. Why would anybody want it? It feels like there's interest for this. It feels like the cast wanted to do it. It doesn't feel like they're pulling teeth making them. Everybody doesn't seem like they're phoning it in, at least not from the trailer. And yeah, I do think that maybe they can address some of your concerns, which is like when you're going to laugh at me for this, but when you experience trauma, they say that you get stuck at that age.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that psychiatrists, psychologists, they say. Has Lydia been able to grow up at all? I don't know.
I mean, sure. Yeah, that could be part of it. Sure. And it could be great. I'll say like modern Tim Burton's track record isn't my favorite. Isn't my favorite. It just feels like we're just abdicating we're retreating into our past, like culturally. Like I feel like across the board culturally, I feel we're retreating into our past, and I feel like this is symptomatic of that. And yeah, we get new things, but I would argue also, like I just saw while we weren't recording, I just saw that movie, the Zac Efron movie, Iron Claw, right? Which
I haven't seen it. How is it?
It's fine. It's billed like it's an A24. It's billed as this gritty, serious, whatever, and it's not. It's a pretty standard, straightforward biopic. But because we don't really do that, like the big budget studios don't make those anymore, and it's an A24 movie, it has to be packaged as like a serious, gritty A24 movie, even though really it's not. It's your pretty standard. I wouldn't say feel good because it's a tragic story, but it's your pretty standard biopic. And so it has to be, because like it has to fit this different paradigm, because studios are too afraid to, like, other studios, mainstream studios are too afraid to put their money behind something like that. Whereas we used to just make movies like that. And yeah, I don't know. I just think, like, do I really want to see Eddie Murphy's been on an upswing lately, but do I really want to see, like, 56-year-old Eddie Murphy jumping around in Fourth Beverly Hills Cop movie? Like, not really. Like, not like, it bums me out, man.
Two things I will say about that, just to make it so deep on the show today, is that, number one, another thing that psychologists and psychiatrists have found is that one of the number one causes, I think I've told you this, of depression is nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's just like longing for the past. And I do think that there is just like a weight on, especially this country right now, but I don't say especially as in more than other countries. Oh. I just know more about this country, the weight that feels on it right now, and the entire world, of like this wave of depression and anxiety and like of doom-dumb. No. And I do think nostalgia causes that, but also you look to nostalgia when you don't feel good about the times. And the other thing being that kind of like is a 1-2 punch with this, not to make the show political at all, because everybody has their own beliefs out there, but we had half of this country using a slogan called "Make America Great Again." Yeah. Not just make America great, make America great again. Yeah. Right. So of course we're going to be putting out a ton of stuff from the past again.
Yeah. But I think the issue there is, instead of looking forward, and I think this is actually an argument to keep it within our wheelhouse. One of the arguments, I know Hector and I had this discussion of why the Fantastic Four movie shouldn't be set in the 60s, is that it should be a movie that's about optimism for the future, not looking to the past. You know, Reed Richards is a futurist looking forward, so it should be somebody in the now looking forward to positive. But I think the issue is when you look forward into the future, you can see only negatives, or you can see the positives. And I think for corporate America, and this includes movie studios, all the pathway to positive means a deconstruction of everything they're doing. And so let's retreat to the past where everything we were doing was fine. Like, all this stuff that we were doing in the past was fine, as opposed to making a better future means making a more equitable future, means maybe 2 or 3 studios shouldn't own everything, means maybe billionaires are bad, and so it's like, actually, let's go back to the 80s where greed was good. And we were all like, yeah, greed. You know what I mean?
Greed was good is such a wild slogan.
Yeah. Well, and also that specifically the movie that comes from Wall Street is about how greed is bad in 80s and whatever. My point is that it doesn't surprise me that big studio heads are not the best at looking towards the future and being cutting edge, but also don't necessarily have a positive outlook on what the future looks like.
Yeah, I think that they also like are hoping to put Band-Aids on things right now because they're bleeding. Yeah. Like, I saw that this was from Hollywood Reporter, and obviously we're in 2024 now, but profits of 2022 are still relevant of this. But we are working our way out of what is this? Yeah. Which, if you can see on the screen, is the $1.1 billion loss from Disney, the $978 million loss from Comcast, the $575 million loss from Paramount, the $217 million loss from Warner Brothers. Netflix crushed that year. But it's like, I think when they think, oh crap, we need, our boat is sinking, what will work? They're not wrong that, like, you saw Top Gun annihilate, right? Like that movie annihilated.
Yeah.
We see these big tentpoles annihilate. And so as long as those are the things that are making the money, we can't really be like, but why are you guys doing
But
this?
you just brought up Crazy Rich Asians and Everything Everywhere at Once, and yet the bigger studios are not pursuing that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And
You know
that's
what I
why I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, but for every Crazy Rich Asians or Everything Everywhere All at Once that worked, we could name a ton of them that didn't.
Yeah.
Like right now, Fall Guy got smashed.
Yeah. But I would actually argue a big thing with Fall Guy is that they decided to connect what is essentially an original story to a dusty IP that nobody cares about. Nobody cares about the TV show, The Fall Guy. You know what I mean? So by connecting to that IP, instead of people saying, ooh, original
Until you just
movie.
said I didn't even know that they connected to an IP.
But it's one of those things. So I think if you put it towards something more, allow it to be original, which it is, it could just be the movie with Ryan Gosling from Barbie and fucking, her name just shot out of my brain from Oppenheimer. Emily Blunt. Oh my God. I don't know why it just vanished.
Sometimes that happens. It's not there. There's no access.
Just shotgunned right on my brain.
But what's going to do better this month? That or Furiosa? And you would know that before they even came out. You know, like.
Yeah, but I would argue it's not because Furiosa is an IP. It's because of the people behind it. But I see your point. I think it's also something that like, it's telling that the people that got themselves into this hole are also the ones responsible for trying to figure out how to, and they're like, what if we keep digging the hole? And it's like, yeah, maybe whatever, maybe switch it up. But you know what? I'm not in charge of these movies, and I'll bet you Beetlejuice does pretty good. I think Beverly Hills Cop's going straight to Netflix, so that's functionally meaningless of whether it does well or not. Yeah, but I'll bet you Beetlejuice does well.
Are you gonna see it?
Beetlejuice. I'm going to be honest with you, Roxy. That's the month baby's born, so I'm going to say probably not. And I can be completely honest when I tell you I have zero interest in that. I think the first Beetlejuice is fine. If we were covering for the show, I'd see it, but otherwise, like, I honestly don't care. I don't care about a 40-year-old sequel to a movie, like a movie that was perfectly fine on its own. I don't need a Beetlejuice sequel personally. I wouldn't probably see. I don't have a huge amount of nostalgia for Beverly Hills Cop. I probably wouldn't see that either. But I'm not the target demographic for this shit. Like, I feel like I've gotten so much, not necessarily heat, but like so much pushback. I'm like, I didn't like X-Men 97. You know what I mean? I'm not a nostalgia guy.
You didn't like it at all?
I thought
the only person I've heard.
Yeah, I thought the animation was great. I thought it did some cool things, but there's a few different things that combined that made it not my favorite. And the one that's pertinent to this conversation is it felt like almost all fan service, which I think is why it's so popular. To me, it felt like the equivalent of you dangling keys in front of me and expecting me to clap and cheer for you. It's like that's not going to cut it. Like, I don't care enough about this. I'd rather new things. I don't want to see a reboot of a cartoon from the 90s adapting comics from the 70s and 80s written for 40-year-olds, but like in the same tone as if it were a kid's show. Like, it felt infantilizing. It felt like I was being talked down to. It's whatever, but that's me. So long story short is this shit isn't for me. I'm not the nostalgia guy. If you want me to like be stoked about that, I'm not your guy.
It bodes well for you in your life.
Does it?
That means you've never experienced depression.
Is that what that means? All right. Well, good to know. Good to know.
Good for you.
Good to know. I'm glad I finally found that out.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's lighten the tone a little bit and talk about the apocalypse. Roxy, you said a few times recently that you are an apocalypse girl. What do you find so appealing about the apocalypse?
Yeah, it is. It's like a new development. As you know, we've been doing the show together for so long. Yeah. This is a newer one of me being like, oh my God, who knew? I'm an apocalypse girl. I love high stakes. Apocalypse, high stakes. Yeah. Which is actually kind of funny because it's also kind of the lowest stakes because the apocalypse already happened.
It happened.
So like, what are you fighting for? But I think it's all for all those reasons, when you're a kid and you ask, like, which one of us would survive? Like, and you think about yourself and what you would do in certain situations. But we also see people at their best and their worst, right? Like, every time in The Walking Dead for 15 years or however many years I watched that show, you would walk up to a stranger, you would wonder, I, as the audience member, would wonder, is this person about to kill me or embrace me? And I don't feel that way in normal life walking down the street.
Good.
So sometimes it's a little dicey recently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so the fact that every person around you is a threat or a friend or a foe, I just think it makes the stakes very high. And we get to see the best and worst of people during that time. And also usually it causes for like interesting sets and set design, usually kind of cool music along with that. I just am really into them recently.
Well, you're getting a lot of them. We're doing a lot of them.
I know.
So there's a lot of opportunity for stuff to be into. So I was looking into this week, and apocalypse fiction goes back thousands of years, at least farther than this. But like when I was looking into stuff, one of the farthest back examples would be something like the Book of Revelation in the Bible. Going back even further to the Old Testament, you've got stuff in Daniel that deals with the end times. Go back even further in Genesis, you have the flood myth with Noah. And if you go to other cultures, you got the same flood myth, not the same, but you got the flood myth with Gilgamesh. So those stories around those times. So clearly, like going back to the dawn of humanity, we've been interested in like, what if everybody died? As far as
not everybody,
not just as far as the audience concerned, everybody but me, and it'd be like, well, but if it happened, it would probably be you. It'd probably be you.
No, but it doesn't even have to be that many. Like, would you call Leftovers an apocalypse show?
I didn't see it.
Well, 2% of all people died.
Yeah.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
That's an apocalypse show to me.
Yeah.
So I don't need it to be everybody. I just like there was life. I like the idea of, for lack of better words, like ADBC or BCBC, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like before apocalypse, after apocalypse.
Yeah.
There was life before, there's life after.
Yeah.
It's like this new starting point.
Yeah.
Even if it's a smaller percentage, even if it's not like everybody, or even if the entire world doesn't look different.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like that. Just an idea, opportunity to reset. I definitely get the appeal of that, where it feels like incremental change isn't going to cut it. You kind of need to like, well, let's try starting from scratch. You know what I mean? Let's just try and retool this whole thing. As far as modern fiction is concerned, the novel The Last Man by Mary Shelley, which was published in 1826, seems to be widely regarded as one of the earliest instances of dystopian fiction in modern literature. The plot of that revolves around a 21st century plague that wipes out most of humanity. I found that interesting. I was like, oh yeah, all right.
How weird is it? I mean, this is the closest that we've ever been to an apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
I don't mean of all time in the planet.
Yeah.
But
and a bummer, we didn't reset a lot. It doesn't feel like we didn't use it as an opportunity to reset too much. I don't think.
No, it's like, remember, what is it called when FDR was like, okay, now everybody's there's no money.
The New Deal.
The New Deal. Thank you. Everybody's going to build all the things and all the stuff. Like, imagine if we had done that.
Dude, it's so frustrating. Not that FDR is like perfect or saint or anything.
No, I don't mean that.
But it's crazy what he was able to get away with. I was like, hey, what if we actually did things to make stuff better for people? And it's like, why can't we do that again? Why is it so hard to do that? Especially like you said, like
after the horrific time that was COVID, we were like, okay, now we are going to solve the housing crisis,
or even something closer to the actual thing, like, oh, you know what, maybe we should fix our healthcare system. Yeah, maybe we should. Maybe this would be a good time for that.
What I said is very close to the thing, because we know that people couldn't work, and then people were broke, and then they had nowhere to live. It's like, just there's so many things we could have done that we didn't. which is directly it has to do with our leadership.
Yeah.
Then and now.
Yeah.
But just it's like this is the closest time we've been to living in an apocalypse. And that's so interesting. It's like, was that a prediction? Was that a premonition of Mary Shelley? Like,
well, I think, I should have looked up, but I wonder, specifically the bubonic plague, and I wonder if, what kind of health crises issues were going on at the time in, the 1860s, or excuse me, the 1820s.
The Spanish flu?
Spanish flu would have been early 20th century. It would have been, so the early 1900s. I want to say, obviously we're all talking about it during the pandemic, but I want to say it was like the 1920s, maybe the 1910s. So it would have been after that book. But what's interesting about apocalypse fiction is how often it reflects the concerns and the crises of the time. Chris Nashawati wrote for Entertainment Weekly, quote, "Apocalyptic narratives have been with us since the dawn of cinema. Even before the birth of talking pictures, one of the earliest was 1916's aptly titled The End of the World. This Danish film depicts a daisy chain of natural disasters and riots after a rogue comet passes too close to Earth. This wasn't some fantastical confection conjured up from Copenhagen either. The film was a response to the panic that had erupted 6 years earlier when Halley's Comet brushed past the planet. The End of the World became a box office hit, early evidence that filmgoers would flock to see what scared the hell out of them." Nashawati continues arguing in this article about how apocalyptic films kind of reflect our concerns of the time. Quote, "Although the particulars of the social breakdown in he's talking about Mad Max, George Miller's first Mad Max film. The breakdown in Miller's film are left vague. It's clear that Max's world has turned into a wasteland because of a fuel shortage. 35 years ago, the subtext would have been obvious to everyone in the theater. The U.S. and other countries were held in a vice-like grip of an OPEC embargo in 1973, and later in the decade, paralyzed by an energy crisis. Oil prices skyrocketed, and spontaneous acts of violence broke out in gas station lines that stretched for blocks. Here was the psychic topsoil where doomsday visions not only took root, but blossomed and thrived." And I will say something. Have you seen the original Mad Max movie, Roxy?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What I find interesting about the first Mad Max movie is that it feels like a rare example of almost a pre-apocalypse. Like, it's dystopian. Things are bad, but there's still some social structure. Like, Max is a cop. You know what I mean? Like, and so especially if you're working backwards, like I did, like I'd probably seen The Road Warrior. I think I watched the original Mad Max after I seen Fury Road. And by the time you get to Fury Road, like, things are well and truly fully off the rails. And then you go back and watch the first Mad Max, and you're like, oh, this is almost quaint. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like you guys have working water. Like, I don't know.
Things were good.
Yeah, comparatively. And so I think that is something interesting about the Mad Max movies, where it feels like you can, maybe it's because it's all from the one creator, you can kind of track the regression of the apocalypse through the movies. And of course, I think it's safe to say that media's love affair with the apocalypse has gotten supercharged thanks to the advent of the nuclear bomb. And now we have the looming climate crisis, and we have COVID. So within the last year and change, we've not only gotten a new Mad Max, but we got a new Planet of the Apes. We got Fallout. We've had 3 Walking Dead spinoffs. We've had Twisted Metal. We had Civil War, which isn't apocalyptic, but it is kind of dystopian, collapse of Western culture, that kind of thing. We got The Last of Us. And that's just the stuff, when I was writing this, that was just the stuff off, like, immediately I could rattle off the top of my head. So while we're still dealing with the threat of nuclear warfare and climate change, I also kind of feel like if apocalypse fiction is a reflection of our concerns of the time, I kind of feel like we're entering a new era where the source of the apocalypse is corporate greed. Light spoilers for Fallout, but if you've watched that show, that's kind of revealed to be what happened in the Fallout universe. And one of the most recent episodes of Doctor Who, the Doctor and his companion arrive on a planet that has been decimated by self-perpetuating war created by capitalistic arms dealers. So with all that in mind, like you said, Roxy, you've kind of become enamored discovered that you really like these apocalypse show. Where do you think we're at with apocalypse fiction? Where do you kind of see it going in the next few years as it reflects like what we're worried about now?
So one of the things that I think is cool about apocalypse as a genre is that, like some of my other favorite things like cringe or whatnot,
Yeah.
it kind of has a lot of different genres. Like just off the top of my head, I was thinking, okay, like some of my favorites would be Quiet Place.
Yeah.
That's a horror apocalypse,
Yeah.
right? This Is the End. That's a comedy apocalypse.
Yeah.
A lot of the shows that you've talked about, which are drama apocalypse,
Yeah.
even like The Walking Dead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever we want to call it. I watched a really beautiful movie called How It Ends the other day, which is Zoe Lister-Jones directed it and stars in it. And it's about her going around with her younger self because there's about to be a comet that hits.
Yeah.
And they know it's coming. The whole planet knows it's coming. And she's going to each person that she like has last things to say to and having conversations with them.
Interesting.
Very, very simple, really like sweet premise.
Yeah.
But it's a comedy too. And I was just thinking like, wow, what a cool like way to do. I think it was a big festival darling a couple of years ago, and way to be like, okay, why are we fascinated with the apocalypse? What does it matter? And in this one, the world's going to everybody's going to die when it hits. So it is like it makes it you boil down to what matters to me.
Yeah.
Where am I at? What matters to me? What do I wish that I said? What do I wish that I did? What can I do more of? What does my time here mean?
Yeah.
What happens afterwards? Right. And so I think with all the things that you're talking about in terms of moving forward, apocalypse is very easy as a genre to be a mirror to our society with what it is that we are concerned with, more on an individual basis than like what the actual event is, right? It doesn't really matter whether it's zombies or corporate greed or I think that that's interesting to think about, but it's more like, what do we do as humans? And I don't know about you, DJ, but I feel like one of the problems of this planet is that humans are getting more increasingly individualistic, which is causing them to be more evil. And I think that it's about what every person does during these times.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what we're seeing reflected, is that like, as the seasons went on in The Walking Dead, most people are your enemy. Most people, when they see you, kill you on sight.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing that we're going to continue to see reflected, is that there's fewer and fewer like truly kind humans, and the apocalypse kind of brings out the worst in the worst.
It's tricky too because I think, if you were to look at something like COVID, that would seem to support that perspective, because obviously there were a lot of people that threw a big old tantrum about stuff like wearing masks, right? On the other hand, typically, there's been studies and stuff like that. If you have an earthquake or something like that, the initial human response is not to antagonize each other, but it is to immediately people tend to become more supportive of each other. And obviously I'm not smart enough or I haven't read enough or done my own studies to know what the distinction there is. Although I would suspect, again, based off anecdotal evidence, that maybe it's the difference between something immediate, like an earthquake, immediate and catastrophic in a very tangible way, like an earthquake, as opposed to something that you theoretically could ignore the effects of, like COVID. You know what I mean? Where you could be like, you can be told the number of people that die, and it's like huge and devastating, but you could see how people in pockets could just ignore that information. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think when we talk about the future of apocalyptic storytelling, I think we'll definitely see some stuff in the next few years that directly reflect COVID and that experience. I think it would be smart, anybody making zombie movies out there, to look at what happened during COVID and you maybe use a zombie movie to process those feelings. I think we'll also see more stuff with AI apocalypses. Although, the people with the purse strings might not want to do that, might not want to support those projects. But
it's a good call though, because that's definitely something that we don't see as much of, and is most realistic for our time.
Yeah, but I also think that's what I think that's why I kind of landed on the corporate greed stuff, because it seems like the less, just as prescient, but maybe less obvious than some of the other apocalyptic stuff, or maybe it just reflects my concerns more. I'm not worried about the Terminator universe or a zombie universe, but a bunch of corporations saying, it'd be a great idea. It would make us the most money if everybody was dead. That, what I mean? That's maybe not that literal situation, but that idea scares me. That's a scary idea to me. We've got a couple questions in the Discord, from the Discord. If you guys want to participate in Discord, you can do that over at patreon.com/onlystupidanswers. Clementine asks, what series or franchise would make a sick post-apocalyptic reimagining? I asked because there's been a post-apocalyptic Zorro movie stuck in development hell for years, and I think that would be sick. He says, just looking at my DVD collection, Blues Brothers, there's something there. We got to get the band back together, give rhythm and blues back to the world, maybe. So what would be a standard franchise that you would give a post-apocalyptic reimagining to?
Do you have an answer to this?
Predator. Put the Predator in the future. I guess we kind of got that in Predator 2, although that was like an alternate 90s. What's another good one? What would be another good one? A franchise. I mean, you couldn't go wrong with you just pick a superhero. The comics have gotten a lot of mileage out of that. Well, you could argue it's not really apocalyptic, but it is dystopian. You could argue The Dark Knight Returns is like a dystopian Batman novel. I think Spider-Man Reign is an example of that. But set a Superman movie 100 years in the future, and all those loved ones are dead, and the sun's red, so he doesn't have his powers anymore. That's a movie. I'd watch that movie.
I think that for me, and it might just because I'm absolutely obsessed with this right now, for Real Rejects, I've been doing a watch along for the Chucky franchise, which I've never seen.
Yeah.
And I just think that these movies are incredible, and every single one of them. When we're talking about reboots, this is how to, or remakes or sequels, this is how to do it right. Every one of them is so different than the next one. They're just so unique. Have you seen this franchise at all?
My wife is a big Chucky fan, so yes.
I'm a huge Chucky girl now. I just love it. Apocalypse Chucky would be funny as hell.
Yes. Agreed. What I would like to see is, have you watched the Evil Dead movies, the original Bruce Campbell Evil Dead movies? Okay. So the third one sends him back in time to the Middle Ages. And there was an alternate ending. This isn't the actual ending of the movie, but the whole time he's trying to figure out how to get to the Back to the Future. And Ash, at this point in the series, played by Bruce Campbell, is a major fuck up. It's hilarious. He's great. And somebody gives him a potion that he's going to hibernate until the present, but he forgets the dosage. And in this alternate ending, he ends up taking too much and he sleeps through the present into an apocalyptic future. And I would love to see a version of that, like post-apocalyptic Ash.
That's cool.
Evil Dead, Ash in the Apocalypse. That would be great.
Are the Evil Dead movies amazing?
They are incredible. I would argue there's no bad Evil Dead movies. There's the 3 originals with Bruce Campbell, directed by Sam Raimi. There's been 2 reboots/reimaginings. One's just Evil Dead, one's Evil Dead Rise. I would argue all of them are great. And then there's Ash and the Evil Dead, which is a TV show, which is also great. I don't think there's a single bad Evil Dead entry, in my opinion. Mike Joyce asks, would you rather die in the apocalypse, create your own community in the wasteland, be a raider in the wasteland, leave Earth, or live in a Fallout-type vault and try and rebuild society hundreds of years later?
What's your answer?
Well, just going through that right now, I'm going to go through them one by one. Would you rather die in the apocalypse? Well, I'd rather not die. Just personally.
Yeah, no.
Create your own community in the wasteland sounds kind of appealing. I wouldn't want to be a raider.
There's 2 that sound appeling, DJ.
Yeah,
the 2 that sound appealing are creating your own community or the being a bunker person.
Well, okay, but here's the one I when I initially read it, I missed, and now reading it again out loud, I saw leave Earth. Elaborate more on that. Do I get to travel the stars while Earth is an apocalypse? Sure. I'll duck out.
No, yeah, when I heard that one, I thought it was like die.
Mike, you're going to need to elaborate on what you mean by leave Earth, because if I just get to leave, like, there's like every once in a while Discovery would do these things like, imagine you were just coming back to the Earth 3 million years later. Here's how things have evolved. Yeah, man, if I could just duck out, hop into a TARDIS to go back to our Doctor Who reference, and pop back in on the Apocalypse every once in a while, saying like, how y'all doing? Not great. Cool. I'm going to leave again. Yeah, that sounds great. If I could just be a star traveler, please sign me up. But let's take that off there. Yeah, probably the Vault or Build a Society. I'm going to be honest with you, Roxy. The Vaults don't seem that appealing to me, especially since having played the Fallout games, most of them are them experimenting on you.
Okay, but what about the better vaults? And like your vault doesn't have to be, because what he said was be in a vault and try to recreate
Fallout type vault and try and rebuild society hundreds of years later. Yeah, so, I mean, if the option is skip the apocalypse, we're probably going to pick skip the apocalypse one, right? Mike Joyce in the chat elaborates, by leave Earth, I mean explore space. Yeah, man, I'll do that. I would do that even without the apocalypse. Hey, DJ, do you want to participate in the 2024 election, or would you rather leave and explore space? Leave and explore space, man. If that's an option, I'm taking that 10 out of 10 times. Leonard Kim asks, obviously depends on the type of apocalypse that occurs, along with a myriad of other factors, but how long do you think you could survive in a post-apocalyptic world? I give myself a day, which might be too long.
It depends on the kind of world. This is the thing that I'm always talking about.
Yeah.
I'm super slow. If the zombies are fast, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Like if that's the kind of apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
But if it's like a leftover situation where it's just tough on your heart, I'm gonna last a long time.
Yeah. It depends on what skills I need and how quickly I need them. Like, I don't necessarily have all the skills that I could produce my own, like grow my own food, but I could, if I had the time, I could figure that shit out. Like if I could go to libraries or whatever, what are we doing? I will say, like, looking at a Fallout type scenario, that show's fun. But if we do the full nuclear warfare thing, it's going to be real bleak for most. Either you're going to be dead real quick, or it's going to be super fucking bleak, like more bleak than you could possibly imagine. And I do think that is a downside, Roxy, to our apocalyptic stuff, is at the end of the day, you're trying to make like a fun movie. And so I think some people watch this stuff and be like, oh yeah, this would be cool. And it's like, no, it wouldn't. No,
I don't think people think that.
I kind of think they do. Like, I think we're going to talk about this in what we're into, but I saw the new Alex Garland Civil War movie. And I think one of the failings of that movie is the director not realizing how many people think they want another Civil War and think it'd be like fucking bitching. And it's like, no, man, no, you're wrong. You are incorrect.
Huh. Did you not like the movie?
I did. It wasn't for me. It was fine. It was fine.
I've heard very mixed things.
Yeah, it was, I feel mixed things on it. Last question for you, Roxy. This is from me. I'm going to make you pick an apocalypse. What apocalypse you're going to have to live through it. Which one would you prefer to live through? Here's what I got on my list. We got zombies, which are the Walking Dead, Last of Us situation.
So slow zombies or fast zombies?
I'm just saying zombie. The two examples I give you are Walking Dead and The Last of Us.
Okay.
So I think what that means is slow, but with variations.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there's variations of Walking Dead, right? There's variants of the main.
More in The Last of Us.
Yeah, more in The Last of Us. That's true. Nuclear apocalypse, which is like more of your Fallout, and robot apocalypse, which is your Terminator. There's a little overlap there because I also think that's nuclear, but I give you your AI is taking over the world and is trying to wipe out humans apocalypse. Those are your three choices. Zombies.
Not the last one.
Nuclear or robots.
Not robots.
Not robots.
We can't win.
I feel like we can. I feel like people are I feel like the companies are trying to oversell us on the AI. I don't think, I'm not as impressed. I'm not as impressed.
I guess I go with the second one because it's the only one in which I feel like we could get the best of humanity, possibly.
Nuclear? You think zombies? No, we're done. Can I
Well,
give you a
can't reason with a zombie, and I can't reason with a robot.
But can I give you a counterpoint on zombies?
Yeah.
In Shaun of the Dead, they take care of that pretty quick. They take care of the zombie thing pretty quick.
Yeah, but the way that you're painting the picture is like not.
Last of Us and Walking Dead. You're good point.
Yeah.
Solid point. Okay. All right.
What's your pick?
What's my pick? I pick zombies just because I feel like, despite what movies tell us, that actually might be the relatively easiest to manage. Because again,
The thing about zombies, you could go to an island.
Yeah, I think with, like, from what I understand of a full-on nuclear apocalypse, 99.9% of humanity is not doing so hot in that one. Is not, or doing way too hot, depending on how you want to phrase it. It's not. I just really, it's because, like, even
but
zombies,
you don't have fear every day. Like,
that's true. I mean, you do because if you survive, but you're unable to farm because the soil and because there's no sunlight from
completely. But I don't want anything coming out at me.
Okay. You don't want anything jumping at you. I think at least in zombie world we can farm. You know what I mean? We can, like, I can make a village with a gate. You know what I mean? And I feel like I picked Roxy's nuclear fallout. She wants to live in Fallout. And I'll take Last of Us. I'll take it. Maybe not Last of Us. I'll take Walking Dead. I feel like Walking Dead's manageable.
You have the possibility of getting murdered in your sleep.
I mean, you have that in Fallout too.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. From a raider?
From a raider, from a person.
Yeah.
But not, like, if there's zombies, like, the world's in a different place.
All right. So those are our apocalypse. So if you were to rank them, what's the worst apocalypse? Nuclear's top. So wait, another example, like the Mad Max apocalypse. Where does the Mad Max apocalypse fall in the apocalypse rankings?
What are you even calling the Mad Max apocalypse?
I don't think it's funny. Is it a nuclear one? Because that article is right. We don't really know. Like, there's a fuel shortage in Mad Max 1, and then somehow we get to Fury Road. Somehow between that and Fury Road, things have really gone off the rails. And because everything's a desert, it feels nuclear, because that's like how we like to do nuclear apocalypses. Like, it's a desert now. And you get cars. You got a lot of cool car chases. Is Mad Max the best or the worst of the apocalypses?
I think the best.
Okay.
Even though it's like the bleakest movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, ugh.
You get to, I mean, you're driving around, you're doing cool car chases and stuff. You're doing stunts. You got to be good at stunts.
Yeah, but like Mad Max, we're going back to like slave labor and
because that's a good point, because what do they call them? The Nicholas Hoult played one of them, the one in the white face paint or whatever. They had tumors and stuff. They were nuclear. They were irradiated. So some nuclear thing happened. So that's part of your nuclear. That's part of your nuclear. All right.
Yeah, no, mine's the best plan. I think that the worst one is robots. I think that one's tough.
Yeah.
Like, what do you call a Quiet Place apocalypse?
I was gonna give that as an option, and I was gonna say that's under aliens, but then my examples for alien stuff felt too close to zombies. It's just a variation on the zombie. There's a critter out there that's gonna grab you, and don't do the thing, don't get their attention. It just felt too similar. Whenever I thought of an alien apocalypse movie, I guess the other example would be something like Independence Day, but we don't spend a lot of time, at least in the first one, we don't spend a lot of time post. Like, we don't know what the Independence Day timeline looks like 100 years in the future. I guess I never saw 2, so I don't.
What about Live, Die, Repeat?
Live, Die, Repeat. That's another alien one. But again, it's like critters. Doesn't it feel kind of like zombies in a way? Obviously, they're not zombies, but it feels like the same narrative tool. Same, like.
But like when people are like, would you rather fight one bear or 50 chickens?
50 chickens, man. Come on.
My answer is always the chickens.
Yeah, the chickens.
So
I will say,
I'd rather fight a bunch of zombies than one of the big creatures.
That's fair. And to your point, I think Alien Apocalypse is the worst, and I can't stress this enough. If they can get here, if they have the capability to get from where they are to here we're fucked.
They have the capability for
we're fucked. Like it's not even close to anything.
If
like
what they want is to make us fucked.
Yeah, if it's like a conflict, like if it's apocalypse, if it's Independence Day, I don't care what virus Jeff Goldblum comes up with. It's not like the aliens are going to have never. By the way, I love Independence Day. This is not me dragging Independence Day, but the idea of like, ooh, a computer virus. I bet the aliens haven't thought of that. Like, fucking, are you kidding me?
Yeah, totally.
It'd be like a kid. Like, I bet if we throw crowns at them, they'll go away. It's like, what are you talking? Oh my god. Yeah. So aliens. This is interesting. I feel like we've uncovered new ground here. Aliens, bleakest in an apocalypse situation. Mad Maxy nuclear.
No, I think it
wasteland.
goes aliens, robots, zombies, nuclear.
Nuclear Mad Max Fallout land. Okay. I think I'd flip zombies, but again, I'm throwing Shaun of the Dead in there, and they kind of
let me ask you, throwing one other wrench in there.
Please.
You didn't watch Leftovers, but
yeah.
Premise being they disappear. We don't know where they went. Yeah. Life has to go on. So let's just call it like God apocalypse, or like universe apocalypse, where you don't know what happened, if it would happen again, what's happening.
I like the premise of The Leftovers because it takes a lot of fiction that I grew up with in my evangelical background and does it in a way like, but what if really though? And you weren't like, didn't know. It's not like God showed up and was like, hey, by the way, this is what happened. It just happens, right? And you're like, was this the thing? Was this what we were talking about? Well,
or like the snap, even like the Thanos snap. Okay, let's like clump that into
people vanish. Well, I will tell you, in the background I grew up in at the time, I was told that was the best one because I would be okay in it, which I think is how a lot of people look at apocalypse. Is like, it's okay because I would be one of the survivors, and it's like is that, I mean, I'm gonna say, I don't know where that falls on the thing, but I'm going to say ixnay on that from me for a couple of reasons. Because it either means, if we're using Leftovers as our template, it either means there's some force at work that I have no comprehension of. Or on the other end of the spectrum, the two examples you gave are Thanos. It is a force you're aware of, a godlike force you're aware of, but he sucks. And so it's like, not a huge fan of either of those. Yeah. If there's a version where it's like, hey, there's a force out there, but he's actually super chill and he's got your back and it's going to be cool, that would be great. That would take a huge load off my mind. But the two examples you gave were like unknowable or sucks, and it's like I don't really like either of those.
What is the difference between dystopian and apocalypse?
I think dystopian, a lot of apocalypses are dystopian, but I would say something like 1984 doesn't necessarily involve or is predicated on an apocalyptic situation, but it is dystopian, like Blade Runner. There's no backstory of like, society hasn't collapsed. It's more like society has evolved in a way that blows. Pretty much all the cyberpunk genre is built around that sort of thing. And I would argue in some ways that stuff scares me more because it feels like the powers that be take the wrong examples from it. So like something like Snow Crash, where it's like, wouldn't it suck if we lived in a virtual realm? And it feels like the Elon Musks of the world, all they hear is virtual realm. Oh, that'd be great. It's like, no, it's a don't do this. We're trying to say no to that. Boo, boo to that idea. Something like The Expanse, where it's like, what if capitalism, like, instead of like the positive Star Trek world, it's like capitalism expands into space. Wouldn't that be awful? And like Jeff Bezos is like, yeah, space capitalism. It's like, no, get out of here. Get out of our sci-fi.
Did you watch Station 11?
No, that was the HBO joint.
Yeah, it was that mini series that came out that was based on the premises, what if flu apocalypse.
Good.
And it was in 2021, which was like
yeah. Maybe too timely.
When did you guys come up with this? But that one was my least favorite apocalypse thing that I've seen in recent years.
Yeah.
Even though it was most critically acclaimed of all of them, I think.
Yeah.
Because it was just like life got weird. Was kind of the premise. Like, okay, life got weird. Apocalypse happened. Life gets weird. Like, there's like traveling, singing people and whatever it is. And like, I am really fully, and people loved the show, and
Yeah.
I get it, but I am fully in the belief that life wouldn't get weird as much as like good and evil would really appear
Mm-hmm. Have you
in
ever
varying
read
degrees.
The Stand? Stephen King's The Stand.
No,
I
I
think you
didn't
might
watch it either.
think you might be. I don't know about the show, but the book's really
Oh,
good. The book's real good, and that in that kind of it reflects the point you're making, and so you might be really into it. You might. I listened to the audio, but I should say I listened to the audiobook version of it because it is a chonker. It's a big old book. What did you make me think of when you were saying?
Silo,
Oh, Silo's a good one. So that's definitely post-apocalyptic. Um,
and it has to do with bunkers,
and
which I would rather
bunkers.
that bunker than the Fallout bunker.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some messed up stuff that, like, I don't love the idea of like people deciding whether you get to have kids or not without you being part of that decision.
No, and obviously, if you're like down low versus you're up higher, I mean, that's
Well,
just
and again, so like it goes back to a reflection of all these stories tend to be a reflection of who we are and how we perceive ourselves, which is the power of all fiction. And so it'll be interesting to see where the genre goes. I kind of hope, this is kind of woo woo, but I do kind of hope that like by articulating this stuff in media, it prevents it from becoming real. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah, no, that's not woo woo. I totally get what you're saying.
and it's like I hope that like because they don't, none of them are. I would prefer none of them. I'd prefer a better. Here's something I'd like to see more of. Is there's a genre of fiction called solar punk, which is kind of the inverse of cyberpunk in that it imagines what a future where we kind of move away from um, industrial capitalism and start moving towards something that's more equitable and sustainable and stuff like that. And that is cool. I know stories function off of drama and conflict, but I do think there's merit in us imagining putting more work into imagining better futures for ourselves and putting that out there.
But it's also difficult to know whether this is helpful or not because, like you said, there's some people who see things and it's bad, and it just gives them the idea for it.
Yeah.
Like, no. What we were showing was saying
we're saying we don't want this.
Don't do this in an apocalypse.
Mm-hmm. It's like when it's like
people.
Sorry.
I think some people it wasn't even on their mind before that. Like I remember when the pandemic started, I had a person like a well-respected like human being in society say to me like, you need to bunker down because if you do not, you are about to get raped and murdered. Cool. Like that's what's about to happen during this pandemic.
Awesome.
And great. I'm not saying the pandemic went well.
Yeah.
But those two things didn't happen to me during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it was like some people really, when you be watching a lot of apocalypse things, like you think that things are possibilities. And I wonder if that would like in our society, if people would immediately go to panic, which I would think they probably would.
Yeah, we'll see. And then you look at, and within the week of this recording, like clearly Sam Altman, I think is in charge of OpenAI, like saw her and was like, oh yeah, this is great. And it's like, I don't know. Her isn't the bleakest version of AI, but I don't know that it was like, this is a good idea story. I don't know if something it was meant, Spike Jonze meant it as something to go away from like, yeah, we should make robot girlfriends. That's what we should do. It's like, I don't know if that's the point of that movie.
What's the lawsuit? I don't know if you're paying attention
with ScarJo.
With what'd you say?
With Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, ScarJo, exactly. Yeah. What's happening with that right
basically,
now?
I don't know what's happening with it, but basically they launched their new version of AI that had a voice, and apparently they reached out to Scarlett Johansson to do the voice, and she was like, no thanks. And then they used AI to create her voice anyway, and so she's suing them, and it's like, I don't feel like I'm normally pro lawsuit, but I'm hoping there's a lot of lawsuits against AI stuff, and I hope that shit works, man. I hope it works. I'm not going to say that there's no merit to AI technology. But I will say I don't love the idea of giving somebody like Sam Altman unfettered access to the entirety of human creation for him to steal and repurpose and sell back to us. I don't love that. Not a fan of that. So I think we need to put some firm guardrails on that shit. I'm not worried about Terminator future, but I am worried about like fuck, man. Some of this stuff I watch on YouTube, some of the educational stuff on YouTube, they've started using like AI to make their stills, and so you'll see like a picture of a caveman with like 3 arms, and it's like, come on, guys, come on, what are we doing? What are we doing? Where's the quality control in this shit? Anyway,
scary.
Let's avoid the apocalypse. Roxy, if the kids are hiding out in their bunkers, can they find the work you're working on?
I mean, if we're in our bunkers, nowhere. But nowhere. Roxy Stryer, at Roxy Stryer. Yeah, that's where I am. That's where I be.
You can find me at DJ Talks Trash. You can follow this show everywhere that matters at Only Stupid Answers. But on Twitter /X.
You ain't got the vowels from stupid.
I guess it's just X now. He's changed the URL because he's a dummy dumb. Anyway, see y'all next time. Bye, everybody.